George, this has been an interesting launch of cholesterol-lowering Weet-Bix, which is, yeah, I know. And it's been endorsed by the Heart Foundation, because obviously they're very keen on lowering people's cholesterol. And it will get, I think, 4.5 stars, because, that really matters too. Interestingly, and I was sent some of this stuff by some people.
Yeah.
The people behind Weet-Bix, which is Sanitarium, which in turn, as my understanding is at least in part owned by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is fine. They believe in being a vegetarian, which is absolutely their right to believe that. But not everybody else has to agree.
Sure.
They did a study on 46 people. 46.
How scientific.
And gave them, it was over 2 months, they got people, one group to eat 2 of the cholesterol-lowering Weet-Bix as against the regular variety for a month, and then swapped it over, and they did the 46 people. My understanding, how much the LDL, or the low density, sometimes called bad in inverted commas cholesterol, people can argue about that, apparently the results were not available. Other studies that have been done have shown that plant sterols, which is what they've put into the Weet-Bix, you can get it in some forms of margarine as well, and I don't personally recommend that people eat those, but people have to form their own opinions, can lower the bad, in inverted commas, cholesterol by up to 9%. Now, up to 9% could be 0.1%, it could be 8.7%. So we've done a trial on 46 people over 2 months eating these 2 Weet-Bix. We don't know exactly what effect it had on them, but other studies have suggested it might lower something by up to 9%. And on that basis, it's now getting ticks and stars and elephant stamps and God knows what else. And not surprisingly, if you go onto the Heart Foundation website, this is all public. So they do talk about the importance of brand awareness, and that partnering with them can increase sales. And I think Sanitarium have obviously decided to do that, and they're entitled to try to increase their sales. There's a small catch. There's been some other work that's been done, and again, people can find this, that shows that even though plant sterols may lower the cholesterol levels, it doesn't impact on heart disease. And in fact, there was one study that built on a few others that reviewed it and found that plant sterols, whilst they might lower cholesterol, actually might increase the rate of heart disease. So whether or not we all agree that this is a healthy thing, we don't know. And whether or not, even if it did lower the levels, after a month, what's it doing after a year or after 5 years? We don't know any of this, and we don't even know how much or how little effect it actually had. But yet this is all going to be promoted as being something healthy. So immediately the imprimatur of this particular form of the product will be on the shelves, and people will think, oh, this is lowering cholesterol, this must be good. I think it's quite as simple as that, George. I really don't.
I'm kind of lost for words. And there's probably more to it. What about one of the dietitians that I heard you mention before?
Look, it's interesting, and I would, if people are interested to pursue this, they can go to a site called foodmed.net, which is written by a South African journalist who's an investigative journalist. Her name is Marika Sporus. And she's looked at the connections between dietitians and John Kellogg, I think John was his first name, obviously, of the eponymous breakfast cereal chain, who formed that and then set up Sanitarium. And he was obviously a supporter of a vegetarian type diet because of his religious persuasion. Again, all of that is fine. Interestingly, dietitians collectively say diets such as paleo, for example, are unhealthy because they cut out whole food groups such as dairy and grain. Being a vegetarian actually cuts out a whole food group. It's called red meat. More broadly, animal protein. So how is it that cutting out one type of whole complete food group is not good, but cutting out another complete food group is okay? Until we realise that if you're a vegetarian, you obviously don't want to eat red meat, fair enough. Red meat does have some good, I would class as good fats in it, including cholesterol. But if you want to say to people, don't eat this because we don't, our religion doesn't support it, a lot of people might say, I don't really care what your religion says, fine, but I'm not of that particular religion, I'm of another persuasion. But if you say to people it's not healthy, then immediately you've stripped out any other associations.
So let me get this straight. You're saying that the dietitians that are influenced by their religious beliefs.
Okay, no, I'm not actually saying that.
Okay.
No, very much not saying that. But the history is that some of the original work that was done in dietetics, this is going back to the early 1900s, was very strongly influenced by Kellogg and his proteges. Now, what we see is that influence continues to run through. That doesn't mean that every dietitian follows a particular religion.
What I'm saying is there are certain dietitians in that flow that influence what's healthy and what isn't.
I think what's happened is over 100 years, there is a certain belief system that has permeated. And that belief system is that a plant-based diet is a healthy one versus one that might have animal products in it. Now, some people, again, for a variety of reasons, don't want to eat animal products. It might be political reasons, it might be personal, whatever. Fine, that's their right. But that's a different argument to saying it's healthy.
Yes.
It's a different argument. So when you really, rather than saying, well, don't eat red meat because we feel that it's wrong, sinful, whatever it might be, people might say, well, who cares?
Yeah.
Say to people, oh, don't eat it because it's not healthy, then they might take that more seriously. And the concern that's been raised by some writers is that those two messages have got a little bit entwined, and that all of that sits fairly deep under the surface, reflecting history. And, 100 years goes by, people sort of forget the history, obviously.
Would that make sense, that suddenly the paleo diet is evil because it doesn't include any grains, and Sanitarium is the king of manufacturing grain products?
I mean, again, this is on their public site. The amount of funding that, in Australia at least, the Dietitians Association receives from manufacturers of grain-based products, and that includes breakfast cereals, snack bars, the list goes on, is not insignificant. I think it's sort of somewhere between, people have quoted figures between 15 and 20% of their income. Yeah, they're entitled to make a living, and I don't begrudge that. But if they then come out and promote these foods without declaring that that's an interest, then that is where the problem arises. So we all have conflicts of interest. I've got a website, I've got books to sell. Obviously, I'm interested in that. You've got courses that you sell. That's fine. We all have to eat and make a living. Yeah. But we can be upfront about it. I think that's really the issue here. And then people can form their own decisions as to whether they say, well, all right, I see that. Yes, you believe that. You're in partnership with these people. Fine. Versus, might it be that you're saying it's wrong to cut out whole food groups where they don't have any financial association with you, but it's not wrong to cut out food groups where you do have a financial relationship? And people can make their own decisions.
I'm getting the impression that the Heart Foundation are being compromised way far away from their core purpose. And it's deeply concerning that we as a society rely on them. And they are literally spreading misinformation in the guise of science when really there are other influences below the surface.
Look, again, I think opinions will vary on all of these matters, but when on their own website, it's very clear that they are looking for partners and essentially saying that having their logo and their branding associated with your food product can increase sales, then you'd have to say that is probably more a commercial than a health interest.
Wow. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you like Healthy Minded, please subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Yeah, and share with your friends. Please put comments below whether you agree, disagree, if you've got topics you'd like for the future. And until next time, stay healthy minded.